is
Yeah,
ruled by with their terms and conditions
with
of
the
that.
terms and conditions of visa with which they have come. Like Indian government claims that as per his visa, he should not participate in the political demonstrations. Okay,
Right.
and it is right also,
Yeah.
and it is
Right.
true also. Maybe if you go with that logic, it is correct also. But if you see from other perspective, like again, see, dissent is something which is very inherent to democracy. That is the difference between a democratic country and dictatorship. Now, this is something which is very important. If the government is trying to suppress upon dissent, then that means there is something wrong with the government. This is also one point of view. Okay, this is also one point of view. But again, there is a counter view also, because there are always some sections of society who always dissent. Okay, maybe this is something also very evident, uh, uh, because in a country like India, which is huge, which is diverse, we can see that there are multiple sections. Whatever law you bring, whatever policy you bring, whatever scheme you bring, there is always one section of society or other which is getting affected. Now, it is either it is based on religious ground or caste ground or income levels. Always one section would be at a disadvantaged position and they protest. And there is nothing wrong in protesting. There is nothing wrong in protesting if you are actually asking for genuinely for your rights. But most of the times, these protests are not really for their rights. They are with a political motive, an obstructionist motive. So this is something which is hampering the development of the country also. This is also like there are different viewpoints. On one point viewpoint, positive, on one viewpoint, negative. In Western countries, they take this protest as something positive. Always they take it as positive. There is nothing wrong. Okay, even if you protest, there is nothing wrong. So in democratic countries, in Western countries, because they are much more matured, they are much more confident about their systems, their institutions. Okay, that is why they give lot of rights to their citizens. So that is the reason. For example, take the case of USA. So I was seeing an interview where one journalist was asking to Obama directly. Okay, one journalist was asking to Obama, you can say that your policy in Syria was a failure, utter failure, and you made a disaster in Afghanistan, and you came back. And Obama was smiling and replying to that journalist. Now, what is something more important is you can see that this kind of dissent they encourage. But in countries like India, can you question your even local MP or MLA? This is a question. Okay, now this is something our societies have not become so mature to take the criticism. But in Western countries, their societies have become much more matured. That means they are able to tackle the criticism. Again, they do not take it as something wrong. If you question something, if you question the government, they do not take it offensively. But most of the times, our enforcement agencies or political parties or the leaders or rulers, they take it on the offensive side. Okay, they get offended when you say, when you criticize the government policies or something. So definitely there has to be maturity. Okay, but we are very long way to go from Indian side to the Western type of this ones. Okay.
Sir, and 19(1)(c) association and corporations, for example, trade unions and all, can a public sector or a private sector firms or companies restrict their employees in involving these trade unions legally?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They have,
For
yeah, yeah. They have their own restrictions. Even see, for example, even government officials they can form associations. For example, there is IAS association, there is IPS association, but at the same time, they always, as I told, with more and more rights comes some responsibilities and restrictions. Responsibilities and restrictions. Okay, like for example, if you are working in, if you are working as a doctor, if you are working as a police, if you are working as maybe in the fire department. Now these are all essential services. For essential services, the guidelines are much more stringent. Now these associations are a fundamental right, but you can go to these associations, strikes, hurtals, if all other mechanisms fail. For example, doctors can also go for strike. Police can also go for strike. Even the emergency services can also go for strike. But provided all other means fail, like they have to give maybe a 15-day notice, they have to present their demands in an objective manner. If all the demands fail, then they have the right to strike. Okay, because right to strike, right to protest is something like very democratic right. In fact, the way we got independence itself was through this one. Okay, that is the reason we encourage people to go for this if their demands are not met by
No, sir, not
normal.
like
Mhm.
strikes. This can a company, a private sector company or a public sector undertaking
Mhm.
restrict their employees for undergoing a union?
Yeah. They have their own restrictions. See, again, all this would come with some restrictions. For example, you have right to freedom of expression, speech and expression. For example,
Yes.
if you are an IAS officer, maybe by nature of your job, you come to know some secrets, official secrets, but you cannot reveal them in public just because you have right of freedom of expression. Because first your ministry guidelines would applicable, then your fundamental rights would be applicable. Okay, for example, you have right to profession, right to
Yes.
profession, right to movement, settlement. Now all this would come with your ministry guidelines. For example, if you are working with a particular ministry or a public sector undertaking, now first your guidelines would apply, then your fundamental rights would apply. In the same way with this one also, like the ministry, whenever you are taking up a job with a ministry or a government, you will write the, you can say the declaration, you will sign an agreement. In that agreement you will mention that I am not going to take part in this in normal course. That is, if your demands are met by normal process, they are this one. But many, you can say, organizations or public sectors, now they have opened up their management practices. Earlier they were working in a very opaque manner, but now they have also learned from the best managerial practices, the best human resource practices. Now they are opening up their employees and they are asking their employees to speak up. Okay, in fact they encourage the employees to speak up, because this is the way you can resolve the problems, you can improve the organizations. Now it is changing, slowly it is changing, but trade unions, they cannot restrict. Complete restriction is not possible, but what they can do is they can regulate. They can put some terms and conditions, they can put some internal trade unions, they can put some government or you can say the same ministries personnel into these trade unions to have the representation. They can regulate, but they cannot completely ban. Okay.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Good question. Good questions. Any others? Anyone else? Okay. If not, we'll move on. So I hope like you got the way you have to prepare for the exam. So when you're preparing for a broader topic like this, so do not prepare in isolation. Try to always make a list like this. Okay, then try to write whenever you see the newspapers. So within half page, you will cover your Article 19. Now this is the way you have to prepare for the examination. Now not only for Article 19, for any article, I would suggest this way. So make a list of maybe starting from Article 14 to Article 32. Make a list like this. First, write down the definition. Okay, what is there in the article? Then write down the restrictions. Then what is the implications? Definition, restrictions, and implications of each of the articles. Now, if you make a tabular column like this, you are covering whole your fundamental rights within 2-3 pages, not more than that. Okay, and you are using the current events, for example, RTA. This you are just mentioning here, but you should be in a position to write 200 words if asked only about RTA. 200 words only about press freedom. This should be your level of preparation. Okay. So once you are able to reach the stage, you are more closer to the needs of exam. So again, do not prepare in a very isolated manner or compartmentalized manner. You have to correlate the current events with the static portion. This is what the demand of the exam is. Okay. Any questions still here? Okay. If not, we move forward. Article 20. Article 20 is related to conviction. Article 20 related to conviction. Conviction, if you want, you can write down. Conviction is final judgment. Conviction is final judgment. Final judgment of the guilty. Conviction is final judgment of the guilty in a criminal case, and the punishment that is imposed, and the punishment that is imposed, and the punishment that is imposed. Okay, so you should not be confused if what is conviction, because I know most of you are not from legal background or humanities background, so that's why I gave the definition. Okay, conviction means the final judgment of guilty in a criminal case and the punishment is imposed. Now Article 20 has got 3 clauses. Article 20 clause 1, 20 clause 2, 20 clause 3. Take 1 minute of time, try to read this article. Okay, now Article 20 clause 1, I think it could be a bit confusing if you are reading for the first time. Now write down Article 20 clause 1 and beside that write down Article 20 clause 1, no ex post facto criminal legislation. No ex post facto. Okay, I'm just putting it in the chat. Article 20 clause 1, no ex post facto criminal legislation. No ex post facto criminal legislation. Article 20 clause 2, Article 20 clause 2, no double jeopardy. I put it in the chat, all this, no double jeopardy. Then Article 20 clause 3 is no self-incrimination. No self-incrimination. No self-incrimination. Now we'll try to understand what exactly does it mean. So Article 20 clause 1 says that no ex post facto criminal legislation. So I'll just give you an example, okay, so that you'll understand. Again, it's a huge amount of legal terms which are included, but I just wanted to simplify it for you. Okay, now I generally give this example to students. Now for example, in 2020 you are preparing for civil services. Now let us take the case in 2030. Okay, now we are in 2030 now. In 2030, by this time you are all clearing the exam and you became like maybe a secretary level officers or district magistrates. Now if 2030 a law has come saying that taking coaching is illegal in India, taking coaching for civil service examination is illegal in India, and taking coaching is nothing but cheating in the examination. Okay, now for example, you are in job, you are already in maybe 10 years of service. Now you are asked that you would be put behind the bars you have because you have done some cheating here. Now what would you say? What would you reply? What would be your logic for argument?
Since the law has come now, you can't be incriminated.
Yes, simple. Okay, now this is what the Article 20 clause 1 says. That means no ex post facto criminal legislation. That means if you are making a criminal law, then it could not be backdated. That is what the meaning of this one. Now why this is there? That means to reduce the arbitrariness of government. Otherwise governments can act in a very arbitrary manner. For example, government wants to arrest you in 2020. Okay, they did not find anything wrong you have done. Then they can say that taking coaching in the past is a crime and you are punished for this. Now to reduce the arbitrariness of government, Article 20 clause 1 is there. Simply put, if a crime has been done today, the punishment has to be as per the law which is there today. Okay, now in simple terms, this is a meaning of this particular clause. Now again, which we have to notice here is it is related to criminal legislation. It is mostly related to criminal legislation. Now it is not related to civil laws. Civil laws. I hope we discussed in detail what is civil law, what is criminal law.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is criminal law means quickly?
Imprisonment, and it is against the
Yeah,
state.
against the state, and it is imprisonment. If it is calling for rigorous imprisonment, that means in the case of civil law, it is permissible. For example, the government can say that, for example, in this year, the income tax is maybe the slab is 30%. Maybe for last year, it was also 30%. Now the government can say that the last year, the income tax slab is not 30%, it is 35%. And it can ask you to pay the remaining amount, which you have otherwise not paid. This is completely permissible because in civil law, a backdated law can be there. For example, whenever a law is made, they will write the date on which it is passed. They will write the date on which it will come into effect. They will write with effect from. Okay, if you see with any law, they will write, for example, a law is passed on 1st of August. Then they can say that the law would come into force from 10th of September. Now, this cannot be backdated. Backdated is not allowed in the case of criminal laws, but backdating of the laws is allowed in the case of civil laws. This is what mentioned in Article 20 Clause 1 in a more legal language. Okay, now if you read, it would be more sensible. No person shall be convicted of any offence except for violation of law in force at the time of commission of the act charged as an offence. That means as on the date of committing the crime, what is the law which is there in place? A punishment should be there as per the law which is there at the date on the particular date of committing this offence, not the subjected to a penalty greater than which might have been inflicted under the law in force at the time of commission of offence. Okay, again, you cannot make the criminal law more stringent at a later date. That is what the gist of Article 20 Clause 1. Okay, then Article 20 Clause 2. Article 20 Clause 2. It is about double jeopardy. It is about double jeopardy. That means one crime, if you want, you can write one crime or one offense, one punishment. One offense, one punishment. Okay, for the same crime, you cannot be punished twice. Okay, you can write down one more point under the same thing. One crime, one punishment. Then departmental inquiries and disciplinary actions are not counted as punishment. Okay, why it is important is because, for example, if a person has caught in a corruption case, let us take a person has been caught in a corruption case. This person would be sent behind the bars. This person would be subjected to disciplinary action by the particular department or ministry. Now, he cannot claim double jeopardy because I am already being punished by the court. You cannot punish me again. Now, when we say punishment, this is the sentence given by the courts. Okay, sentence given by the judiciary. It does not amount to executive actions. It is only related to judiciary. Okay, again, this is very obvious. Okay, one crime, one punishment. Then next point, no self-incrimination. Yeah, someone wants to speak. Yeah,
So,
please go ahead.
and according to the second point, now say a person robs 20 houses, but
Okay.
then we have evidence like all at the same day. But then we have like he is being in the court, he's being like punished for only 10 houses. Now the remaining 10 houses FIR has not been lodged, and then like later they come to know like he's already been punished, and like later they come to know that there are 10 more houses he's been what he
Okay.
is robbed. Now will he be given punishment
Yeah,
again?
definitely.
Or
Because
it's the same crime?
yeah, it will be definitely given because FIR is not lodged does not mean it is an acquittal. At a later date, FIR can be lodged, and this can be done. Maybe many of the times it would happen like this, like a person is charged under kidnap. Later, it is being found that that kidnapped person is actually murdered. Then the punishment would definitely increase. Okay, definitely it will increase. Like but when we say double jeopardy, that means once a person is already punished, then there is no punishment again. Once the sentence is already given, okay, again it would be not be for the same offense, it would not be there. But if it's a next offense or a different offense or a, you can say the gravity of offense is different, then definitely it would be there.
Okay. Thanks.
Any questions? Or the third one is about no self-incrimination. No self-incrimination, again, this is the principles of natural justice. That is, a person cannot become a witness against himself. A person cannot become a witness against himself. That means until he is proven guilty, the person would be treated as innocent. A, a person who is the suspect, okay, the suspect who has been caught by the enforcement agencies. Now the suspect can either be innocent, okay, that means he might be a just passerby in the crime scene, he has nothing to do with the crime, or he would have been guilty. Okay, now in most of the laws in India, a person is treated as an innocent until proven guilty. Even in the heinous crimes like that of murder as well, he will be treated as innocent until it is proven by guilty. Now, to prove him guilty, the onus is on state. The onus is on state. That is, it is the responsibility of the enforcement agencies to prove that he has committed the crime. The onus is not on the individuals. In majority of the laws, it is like that, even in the case of serious offenses. The reason why it is like that is because most of the times the enforcement agencies have their own mechanism to make you turn into an evidence. That is the reason whatever the evidence which is compelled against yourself should not be treated as an evidence in court. Always it is the state which has to present the evidences that this person has proven guilty. Okay, simply put, even a person has committed murder, even if he agrees that I have committed murder, there would not be punishment until it is proven by the state that he has committed this one. Okay, otherwise there would be false, you can say charging the person on false basis. That is the reason this would never be permissible, and this would again lead to police torture. This would again lead to the torture in here. That means the police also have their own targets. Okay, I hope you know that, like by the end of the year, they have to complete at least these many cases. Now, what they can do, they can just go out, okay, catch someone who is not wearing helmet and ask him to agree that he has committed the crime, okay, or ask him to agree that he has been involved in this kidnap. Until he agrees, they can torture him. That is the reason in any of the suspects, then until he is proven guilty, he would not be treated as guilty, he would be treated as innocent. It is to be proven by the state, except in the case of some acts like which are related to drug trafficking, okay, which are related to arms trafficking, organized crime, which are related to terrorism, which are very serious offenses. Only in these offenses, a suspect would be treated as guilty, and the onus is on the culprit to prove that he is innocent. Okay, and you are expected to be guilty until your innocence is proven, and the onus is on the individual. But in most of the laws which are there in India, even the serious offenses like kidnap or murder or robbery, even in these cases, you can see that you are treated as an innocent until proven guilty. Okay, again it is obvious why it is there. Okay, because this will lead to false convictions. That is the reason this is something there in the constitution. Any questions?
So Article 20 Clause 1, it says that no ex post facto criminal legislation. What about the ex ante crimes?
Ex ante crimes, that means if there is no law for
Not like no law, sir. Exactly like I'll take like a person is a candidate is selected for UPSC any of the services after due like verification of documents. But at the later stage, the board feels that after all commission and after the person goes into the service and starts working, if someone raises a query that this person has been given a wrong certificates or something, then can that be penalized at a later
yeah,
stage?
definitely. Many a times it happened. In fact, I know a case where the person submitted a wrong document, like he belonged to the OBC, but he belonged to the creamy layer. His father is a government servant. But he hidden
Okay.
that fact that his father is a government servant. He belonged to the creamy layer, but he said that he availed the reservation of OBC, got into a good position. Later, this came to know, and it took a lot of time. Later, he has to pay the fine and he has to quit the service. Now, whatever the salary he has taken from this one, he has to quit the service. Now, this is something which happens.
But sir, I read one case where the person was appointed as a like in central government itself multitasking staff MTS, and his age was not completed 18 years as on date of application. But he got selected through board and all the after 3 years someone raised a query and they dismissed the employee. But he went to the court and court gave the judgment that it was the duty of board to duly verify the documents before taking the appointment. You have wasted the time of the
Okay.
candidate, and again he can't
Okay,
apply for the
I'm not
employment.
aware, but
That
generally when you get into the employment, you raise an agreement or you make your testimony that all the documents submitted are correct. Now, in the case
actually,
the documents are found to be false, you are liable for all this. So maybe probably this agreement might not be there. Maybe in that case, but otherwise, if that
okay,
agreement is there, then okay. Again, just generally the companies or organizations, they play safe. They have a huge legal department to get into the nitty gritties. Okay, so all this, so they have seen these cases on a day in day out basis. So generally, they would be aware of this. That means they would make the employees liable for any false data or any false antecedents if they present. Okay, generally they make the employee responsible for that. Generally, okay, but board making responsible, I'm not aware.
thank you, sir.
Maybe if you can share any link or something, yeah, that would,
Sure,
again, I'm not aware of that. Okay,
thank you, sir.
any other questions? You can write few points under Article 20 Clause 3. Article 20 Clause 3. Fingerprints, fingerprints, comma, blood sample, blood samples, blood samples, comma, DNA samples, fingerprints, blood samples, DNA samples can be treated as an evidence. Can be treated as an evidence. Okay, that means the person cannot claim that these are my blood samples, these are my DNA samples. You cannot use X against me. Okay, because they can be treated as an evidence. When we are talking about compelled to witness, it means it is a verbal testimony. Okay, these verbal testimonies are not counted as an evidence. This is what the meaning of this. However, the blood samples, fingerprint samples, DNA samples, or semen samples, all this can be treated as an evidence in the court of law, even against that same person. Next point you can write. Forensic analysis. Forensic analysis, such as polygraph tests. Forensic analysis, such as polygraph tests, narco-analysis, 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 or brain signature profilings, or brain signature profilings, or brain signature profilings, cannot be used as evidence in a court of law. Evidence in a court of law. See, we can use fingerprints. I hope you know that forensic narco-analysis. Okay, what is it?
Yes, sir.
Lie detector. Heard of lie detector test or polygraph test? Okay, many movies also show that. Okay, so these lie detector or narco-analysis or polygraph test. Okay, then brain signature profiling, mitochondrial analysis, and new technologies are coming up, but they cannot be treated as evidence. Can anyone tell me the reason why they cannot be treated as evidence? Any logic? When you're treating fingerprints, when you're treating blood samples, DNA samples, why are you not treating the narco analysis?
The
Yeah, very good.
authenticity is
Because
questionable.
they are not proven technologies till today. Because the blood samples, fingerprints, DNA, all these are proven technologies. Okay, but these are still not completely reliable. Okay, because we can see that there are advancements in these fields, but still they are questionable. That is the reason till today narco analysis cannot be used as a witness, but you can conduct narco analysis to collect other witnesses, okay, or collect other evidences. For example, a victim or a suspect is there, he can be asked, okay, he can be asked upon to do the polygraph test, and under the influence of this polygraph, he can maybe reveal some secrets like where the weapon has been hidden or something else, which can be used as an evidence. But the narco analysis itself cannot be used as an evidence. I hope you got the point here. Okay, so all these are the issues which are related to this one, Article 20, Clause 1. No ex post facto criminal legislation, then no double jeopardy, then last one is about the no self-incrimination. And these are the issues like disciplinary actions, then the issues related to narco analysis, okay, proven until, okay, innocent until proven guilty. All these are the keywords you have to make a note when you are preparing for Article 20 here. You can take a small assignment as well here. You can take a small assignment also. Why India? Why India should ratify? Why India should ratify the UN Convention on Torture? Why India should ratify? Okay, I kept it in the chat. Why India should ratify the UN Convention on Torture? Okay, so again, before that, you have to know what is this UN Convention related to and why it is important, why India is not ratifying it. Okay, so all these are the questions which might be there, but I'll just show you some statistics, some data which will be helpful in writing your answers. Okay, in fact, like India has signed this treaty. India has signed this treaty, but it has not ratified this treaty. Okay, India has signed this, but it has not ratified this. Can someone tell me the difference between signing and ratification? Both are same or any difference? Okay, India has signed. Yeah, please go ahead. Okay, so India has signed this particular treaty in 1997, way back in 1997, but till today it has not ratified. Now, the difference between signing and ratification, signing means maybe our president or prime minister, when they go to Geneva, when they go to Washington, okay, when they go to New York, they sign the treaty and come back. But does not mean the treaty has to be implemented in India just because they have signed, because they do not have that, you can say, the ultimate sovereign body to implement the law is Parliament. Until the Parliament makes a law, we cannot call it is ratified. Okay, that means signing means it is in principle they are agreeing. Ratification means there is an enforceable mechanism within the country. India has signed this treaty way back in 1997, but till today we have not ratified. Okay, again we can see that a lot of statistics, because again as I told that enforcement agencies often use torture as a mechanism. Okay, now how well it is required in a democratic country like India. The human rights organizations like Amnesty International, then United Nations, they always question that all these are against the you can say the democratic principles India stand for. Let's see some timeline. Okay, some timeline here. Okay, so many times the attempts has been made to pass this, but till today we cannot see this in action. It is still a bill. It is still a bill. Now various commissions like Law Commission recommended. Okay, again you are talking with the government statistics itself. When you are talking about the criticism, when you are criticizing this one, you have to quote the government statistics itself. You can quote Law Commission, you can quote Supreme Court, you can quote Lok Sabha report, okay, you can quote UNGA report, okay, because these are all legitimate reports to have a valid criticism. Okay, you can quote NHRC, National Human Rights Commission. National Human Rights Commission many a time argued that these are used against the human rights. Then a lot of statistics also present. Okay, we can see that the police torture is something which is very common in countries like India. Okay, but at the same time, the Indian police is not well equipped, okay, or ill equipped, you can say. Okay, so they do not have proper training, they do not have proper facilities. Again, with the limited, they have to work in very harsh conditions. Now, without these elements or without these powers, they believe that their forces might not be able to operate properly. Now, there is, I mean, it's not like it's completely crystal clear here, but you have to always focus upon the rights of individuals, and also you have to keep in mind about when you're talking about the honest police officials. Police officials. Now, they all also when you're writing your answers. So that is why when you're talking about police reforms, prison reforms, or judicial reforms, you can quote all the statistics, okay, or this data, like India can sign UN Convention on Torture. So this would give more and more legitimacy to your answers. Okay, so that is the reason I wanted to complete this one first before going to the reforms, because until you know the challenges which are there, you will not be able to understand the reforms which are required. Okay, any questions on Article 20? Or if we are good, we'll move forward. Okay, now going on to the next article, right to life and personal liberty. Right to life and personal liberty. Now this is one of the most important articles in the Constitution. Very short article, sweet article, but this is the article which has been widely interpreted by the Supreme Court. This is the most interpreted article in the Constitution, Article 21. Though it is very short, now if you see, the article is from here to here only. Okay, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Now, before getting into this particular article, we have to understand a few terms, just like due process of law. Okay, and procedure. I hope we covered due process of law and procedure established by law. Did we cover that or no? Okay, I'll take it as a no. No, right? Okay. Yeah.
No,
So
sir.
let us get into this one. Maybe you can write down. In AK Gopalan case, in AK Gopalan case, AK Gopalan case, 1950. In AK Gopalan case, 1950. The Supreme Court gave the narrower interpretation of law. The Supreme Court gave the narrower interpretation. Narrower interpretation. Narrower interpretation. And okay, narrower interpretation of Article 21 and Article 21 is available, and Article 21 is available only against arbitrary executive action, and not from arbitrary legislative action. Arbitrary executive action, but not from arbitrary legislative action. Arbitrary legislative action. However, in the Maneka Gandhi case, 1977, the Supreme Court reversed its verdicts. The Supreme Court reversed its verdict, and gave broader interpretation of Article 21, which includes due process of law also. Which includes due process of law also. Which includes due process of law also. Now, when we say procedure established by law, this concept has been borrowed from UK, whereas the concept called due process of law is borrowed from US. In fact, we borrowed this not from UK, it's from Japan, but the UK constitution or the UK is a example of procedure established by law. Now, what exactly is the meaning of procedure established by law? These are like two aspects of judicial review. These are the two aspects of judicial review. When we talk about judicial review is about when the bill is made into an act. The judiciary can review it. Now, in 1950, the judiciary said, we cannot review the actions of legislature, arbitrary actions of legislature. We can only check the arbitrary actions of executive. That means, simply put, the judicial review is very minimal in the case of this particular Article 21. So, we are not talking about Article 13 Clause 2. 13 Clause 2 would be there. But Article 21, when it is interpreting Article 21, the Supreme Court held here is, we are only checking the arbitrary action of executive, not of legislature. And here it said that this is where it calls for parliamentary sovereignty. That is, Parliament is sovereign, and it is only checking the procedures established by law. That means, for example, if a new state has to be created, if a new state has to be created. Now, I think we discussed the procedure. Can anyone quickly sum up what are the 3-4 points for creation of new state? It has to be government. Okay.
Government bill with prior
Very good. Government bill.
President.
Okay. Government bill itself means
With
prior
assent
recommendation of president.
President.
Anything else?
Yeah. The
Okay. Sent to
use
state
will be
assemblies.
sent to the states,
Okay.
but not
Then
binded by the government.
simple
And
majority. That's it.
it's again a simple
Okay.
majority.
That means if a new state is created, then what are the procedures to be followed? Are like it has to be a government bill. It is referred to state assembly or not, whether it is passed by simple majority or not. This is what the judiciary is going to check in procedure established by law. Whereas when we are talking about due process of law, the judiciary is not only checking the procedures, but also it is checking the intent of passing the law. Intent of passing the law. That means, for example, if Telangana is created, in procedure established by law, the Supreme Court would only check whether all the procedures are followed or not. This is what we call it as narrower interpretation. Whereas when we are talking about due process, now why Telangana was created in 2014 and that too before the elections? It is questioning the wisdom of parliament. Now that is why many scholars call procedure established by law as parliamentary sovereignty and due process of law as judicial supremacy. Judicial supremacy. Now, as I told that Supreme Court kept on expanding its reach from 1950s to 1970s. Now, in 50s, it was arguing about parliamentary sovereignty, but by 70s, it talked about judicial sovereignty. Okay, judicial supremacy. I hope this is clear. What is procedure established by law and what is due process of law? Now, this is why we call it as narrower interpretation. This is why we call it as a wider or broader interpretation. Broader interpretation. Any questions till here?
Sir, in this Maneka Gandhi case, the court upheld the dignity of individual should also be upheld. That is meant by the due process of law. Is that the same thing?
So what exactly happened in the Maneka Gandhi case was, I hope you know that, in the Indira Gandhi, the story of Indira Gandhi, this was a time when emergency was in force. Now, Maneka Gandhi wanted to travel abroad and her passport was not given to her. Okay, when she approached the Ministry of External Affairs, then Ministry of External Affairs was directly under the control of Indira Gandhi. Now, Maneka Gandhi was told that it is still under, we are just following the law. The law itself is not allowing you to give the passport. Now, she appealed in the Supreme Court. Now, this court, the Supreme Court, already having some bitter conflict with Parliament, it wanted to teach some lesson to legislature. Now, it took up this case, and here the Supreme Court said that you are not giving us a passport. Then the government replied that we are doing as per the law itself. Now, the Supreme Court questioned the law itself is wrong in that case. Then government said you cannot question law because you have only procedure established by law. Now, Supreme Court said that it is not only procedure established by law, I can question the intent of making the law. You are making the law not for a good purpose. That is why I am questioning your intent. I hope you got it. So this is where the Supreme Court gave the guidelines saying that where I can also check the intent of passing the law or wisdom of Parliament. Here it is not questioning the wisdom of Parliament. It is only checking the procedures, legal procedures. That's it. So this is where it also gave that human dignity is when something inalienable, and it talked about human dignity is part of personal liberty. Okay, so it also gave this one. So here we are only focusing on procedure established by law. Yeah, very good. That is a case which is related to this. Okay. Then.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now what exactly happens in the countries like in the case of UK? Okay, the UK Parliament is the most strongest parliament because the Supreme Court in UK has only procedure established by law. Now, if you want to compare the parliaments of different countries, okay, parliaments of different countries. Now, how to compare is the UK Parliament, okay, then US Parliament and Indian Parliament. Indian Parliament. Now UK Parliament is the most powerful parliament in the world. Now what is UK Parliament called? Anyone? Parliament only. Okay. What is India? Sansad or Parliament. In US, what is it called?
Par-
No.
Senate.
Congress. It is called Congress.
House.
Okay. Now, in the case of India, it is bicameral. Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and what? President. President. All the three includes
President.
Parliament of India. Now, in the case of UK, very good.
House of Commons.
No, House of Lords
House of
and
Representatives.
Crown. And Crown, Office of Crown.
House of Lords.
Okay, so if you are comparing, you can compare Lok Sabha with House of Commons, Rajya Sabha with House of Lords, okay, and Office of President with Crown. You cannot compare Indian President with UK Prime Minister. I hope it's clear, because this is something not valid. Now, in the case of US, again it is having two houses. In US, it is called House of Representatives. Then upper house is called Senate and Office of President. Office of President. Because I'm telling this because you have a separate topic, comparison of constitutions in the world. Again, we are not going to discuss in detail, but whenever we are discussing, try to make a note of all these things. So if you are comparing the parliament of different countries, so US Congress, Indian Parliament and UK Parliament, make a note like this, make a equation like this. I hope this is clear. Okay, which parliament is more powerful? Now, if you want to compare Supreme Courts of different countries, if you want to compare Supreme Court of different countries, you can write UK, you can write India, you can write US. The US Supreme Court is the most powerful Supreme Court in the world. Again, we are comparing Supreme Courts in the powers of Supreme Court in UK, in US and India. Now, in India, we are somewhere in between. Okay, so again, the whole 4 or 5 pages story I just told in just one single line. I hope like you got the point here. When you're comparing the legislatures, the Indian legislature stands somewhere in here. It is neither as powerful as UK Parliament nor as weak as US Congress. In the same way, when we are talking about Indian Supreme Court, it is neither as strong as US Supreme Court nor as weak as UK Supreme Court. It would be somewhere in between. Okay, but again, when you're comparing House of Representatives, you can compare House of Representatives with Lok Sabha and House of Commons. You cannot compare House of Representatives with House of Lords or House of Representatives with Rajya Sabha, because these are lower houses. I hope this is very clear. You should be very clear upon this one. When you're comparing, you can compare lower house with lower house, upper house with upper house, then the head of the state with head of the state. You cannot compare in any other way. Okay. Now, is it clear till here? Yeah.
So one doubt. So the Maneka Gandhi case was mainly highlighted to check why the procedure.
Because if law itself is intentionally made wrong, then the Supreme Court can check the intent of passing the law.
So if it is not relevant, can it be repealed then?
Judicial review, it will be repealed. Now, in judicial review, earlier they used to check only the procedures when it is coming to Article 21. But now, judiciary is checking not only the procedures, but also the intent. Now, that is the reason we can say that it has become more and more expanded this meaning of Article 21. And as I told, this is a widely interpreted article of Constitution. Why it is most widely interpreted article is, now I hope like this particular portion is clear. Procedure established by law. Now we have to go with life or personal liberty. Now this is where the Supreme Court has given multiple interpretations of what is life and what is personal liberty. Okay, now what Supreme Court said is life, when we talk about life, life does not only mean mere survival. life does not only mean mere survival like animals. Okay, it is not just existence. Rather, it should be much more complete. Now, the Supreme Court gave multiple meanings of what constitutes life and what constitutes personal liberty. Now, if you see Lakshmikant, you can see the Supreme Court interpretation of Article 21. Literally from A to Z, you can see all these articles are interpreted by various judgments by Supreme Court. Okay, so if you see literally from A to Z, okay, maybe in the new Lakshmikant it might add new things as well. Okay, so if anything comes under which article it will come, or always Article 21 would be there, because Supreme Court gave multiple interpretations of Article 21 in different cases. Now from Maneka Gandhi case, it started expanding the scope of Article 21. Now Article 21 covers almost literally everything in the country. Okay, now here some aspects which are there in news, we will have a discussion upon this. Maybe in tomorrow's class, we will discuss some issues like this. What is Santhara? Heard it? Yeah. Which religious community
Fasting till
practices this?
death.
Jain. Okay, Jain religious community practices this. Okay, then capital punishment. What is capital punishment? Capital punishment. Come on.
The wealth of
Yeah, hanging on to
is
death.
seized.
Okay, capital punishment. Euthanasia.
Yeah.
Mercy killing. Mercy killing.
Mercy.
Yeah. Okay. Have you seen the movie Guzarish? Okay, so mercy killing, euthanasia. Now all these are the issues which are which you can see when we are talking about Article 21, which are there in news. So we'll spend some time to understand all this, because each of these can be a full-fledged question. Okay, and sometimes they can be asked in your other papers also. So I'm going to give you some guidelines the way you have to prepare for this one. Okay, so any other question still here? And also I did not receive any assignment from last class. Okay, so I hope like you are very clear about the assignment. Okay, any questions regarding the assignment? Or you want some time, or if you are facing any challenge, it's completely fine. You can discuss openly.
So regarding the governance topics, like
Okay.
give us
So
one
that
or
should be
two more
fine.
days time. So
Okay. Any other concerns? Any other thing? Any
yes.
other challenges you faced in collecting the content? Yeah, you can freely discuss. No problem.
So, yeah. So when you guys will be submitting your assignments? Because the last date was till Thursday.
Okay, you can submit those assignments as well as some new assignments also I'll be giving. Okay, so maybe we will discuss in tomorrow's class regarding the other fundamental rights.
That assignment is good for you people itself. Otherwise, we'll be keep giving you the assignments and you will not be able to do your homework. So again, it will be a problem for you guys. So please, because you're preparing for the IAS examination, please write down your assignment neatly, clearly in your handwriting, and please submit it
Yeah.
as soon as possible. And all of you are not submitting your assignments. Only few people are submitting the assignments.
Again, like as I told, like you submit the assignment, like you'll get to know what is the difficulty in getting that, and you'll get to know where to search. Okay, again, I do not want to, I mean, I do not believe in giving you the, you can say the prepared notes, because you already have all this. Like you have quality, good books, very good books like Lakshmikant, you have like lot of material which I'd be giving you. Okay, so again, but all I wanted is you to realize like where exactly you would search for the material, how to make your notes. Now, if you get to know, this would be helpful to in your other papers as well, not only in polity, but in other subjects, any subjects, so that how to prepare very concise assignments. So what I can do is I can just give you an idea how we make the assignments. I hope like you got the template right on one of the topics, soft power Word document. I hope everyone received that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So
forwarded to
what I
all
suggest
the
is like
students.
hardly 2 pages or 3 pages, not more than that. And try to see the previous questions. You can see the previous optional questions. You can see the general studies question. You can see prelims questions. Okay, on the topic which is given to you, how they are being asked. Try to address these things in your this one, and make some structure how to prepare. Now, making that structure would become very difficult, because if you see the topics like children, women, poverty, urbanization, you have lot of facts, but most of the times you would not be having the structure. Okay, this is where very important in this exam, creating the structure for this exam. Okay, it should be in a very structured format. Now, most of the times when you go to mains, it means once you cleared prelims, it means you have all the data with you. Almost all the students who clear the prelims would be having similar data or similar this one with you. But only thing is the way you have to structure your thoughts, structure your preparation, structure your whatever the data, how you present it. This becomes more important. So this is where I suggest like put some effort, spend some time. Okay, maybe hardly 2-3 hours, not more than that. You should be able to complete. You should be able to get. Okay, so again, I'm repeatedly saying do not copy paste from some other institute. Okay, that I do not want you to do. You can read from other institute websites, other institute material. You can read a good NCERT book or any other good literature which is there for that. A good article you can read. You can watch a Rajya Sabha debate, Lok Sabha TV debate, but put in your own thoughts. Okay, do not just copy paste from that. Like how would you present? Maybe you can be more creative. You can use some infographics. Okay, just like I shown when we are talking about Article 19, right? So one table or column, you are completing Article 19. So in the same way, you can put forward your own thoughts. You are free to draw figures. Again, do not copy paste images from internet. Okay, that I do not suggest. Like make your own thought. Make it more, you can say, if you are revising within half an hour or 10-15 minutes, you should be able to revise that particular topic. How would you make your notes? That should be your intention. Okay, any questions on the assignment? How to submit, because I'll be giving you a lot of assignments. Okay, by the time you complete the subject, okay, we can complete the subject, you'll get the questions, you'll get the notes, but ultimately you have to put your own efforts, then only it would be fruitful. Okay, so I won't take much time then. Any other questions or thoughts, anything you wanted to share, feel free. Otherwise we'll close for today. Okay, thank you. Thanks for joining. Tomorrow we'll meet and discuss Article 21, and if possible, we'll try to complete fundamental rights tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.